Hello everyone, hope you are doing good today. So today we are going to discuss about Amazon API Gateway. So in this video we are going to learn what is API Gateway, and also we will do some hands-on, and in the hands-on we are also going to compare between the monolithic architecture and also the cloud architecture. So in the monolithic architecture we are going to deploy an API in Tomcat server, and we are going to do the same API in Amazon Gateway, and we will see the difference and advantages. So now let's start. So what is API Gateway? Amazon API Gateway is a fully managed service that makes it easy for developers to create, publish, maintain, monitor and secure APIs at any scale. That means in AWS cloud, you can develop APIs and publish them, and you can maintain it, and also you can monitor it, and you can secure the API using a API authorizer or API key, whatever you want. And it is a fully managed service. You don't have to do anything. You just need to concentrate on the API design and the deployment of the API. That's it. And the rest of the things will be managed by AWS. And you can think it as a front door for application to access all of your data, business logic or functionality from your backend services. That means as a backend you should have a Lambda, and Lambda will be like Lambda will have the business logic, and the API will act as a front door. So you will provide the API URL to a third party, and with the credential, and then they will call that API, and the API will invoke the business logic which is written in the Lambda. So it's like a front door to your backend. So using API Gateway you can create RESTful APIs, and also using API Gateway you can create WebSocket APIs that enables real-time two-way communication applications. That means if you want some real-time update to the browser, you can use WebSocket API. So let's see this monolithic design to deploy an API. So let's say you want to develop an API which will return the status of the order. So what you will do, you will develop a REST API either using Jarcy or JXRS or any other implementation. And then what you will do, you will deploy the API in Tomcat or any other server, and then you will have also the business logic like in a service class or helper class, and which will communicate to the database, and it will retrieve the order status and it will return back to the user. So here you need a server, that is Tomcat, and also if you want to install Tomcat you need an operating system, so either it is Linux or Windows, and you need a 24/7 internet connection to host it in the internet, and also you need a power supply, and then you need your own data center to store all the data in the database. But all this design are simplified in cloud. So now let's see how we can design this API in API Gateway. So this is the cloud design I have copied from AWS API Gateway homepage. So here you see this is your client, that is it can be mobile application, IoT device or web application, and this is your like backend. Inside backend you have like all database, DynamoDB database, or maybe you have here RDS, that is Oracle relational database. And so here API Gateway can be treated as a front door to your application. So this is the API Gateway, and API Gateway will have its own caching mechanism, so that I am going to explain to you in my next video. So here it can communicate to all other AWS services like AWS Lambda. So you can return your backend code in AWS Lambda, which will query to DynamoDB to get some order information, and then you will return back to the user. Okay, so and here this API gateway is fully managed by AWS. Okay, so you don't have to manage any server or any operating system. And like in monolithic design, okay, Tomcat, let's say Tomcat can handle 1000 requests per second. Okay, and let's say in year end you have more traffic. Okay, so how can you scale up Tomcat? Okay, it's not possible very easily. Okay, so you need to go to the Tomcat configuration file, and then you need to modify something. Okay, and then you need to increase the memory also. Okay, to increase the number of threads. So it's not quite easy to scale up the monolithic application. But here in API gateway it will scale automatically. Okay, so you don't need to think of the scale. I mean you can define a limit, but it can scale automatically. Okay, for that you don't have to do anything. So now let's explain this architecture in depth. So let's say you have a AWS account. Okay, let's say you have AWS region, that is US East 1, and then you have developed API on that region, and then you have many clients. That let's say you have a mobile application, okay, which will call the API also, and you have a web application that will also call the API, and you have a IoT application. Okay, so all these applications will connect to Amazon API Gateway over HTTPS, okay, using the internet. So and then you have your backend code written in AWS Lambda, which you can deploy outside VPC or inside VPC. So Amazon API Gateway can access the backend code. And let's say you have a VPC also. Inside VPC you have a EC2, and inside EC2 you have developed API in one of the server like EC2, sorry, one of the server like Tomcat or Wildfly. You have developed an API, so API gateway can point to that API also. Or if you have developed a Lambda inside VPC, API gateway can connect to that Lambda also. So that's why you can separated your API. So this is your API layer, and here it's like your business layer here, or here it's Lambda is also the business layer. So in this way you can do the design in AWS cloud. And now let's say how you can there are two type of integration in API gateway. Let's say you want to connect API gateway to Lambda for your business logic. So either you can do Lambda proxy integration or Lambda custom integration, or API gateway can directly connect to a HTTP endpoint. That means like inside EC2 you have a server, okay, and inside server you have a REST API, so you can directly call that API from API gateway. So for that you can also use proxy integration or Lambda custom integration. And now let's discuss regarding API gateway throttling. Okay, throttling means that means how much request you can handle per second on API gateway layer. Okay, so you can define your throttling, like it can be 1000 requests per second or 5000 or 10,000, whatever you want. And API gateway sets a limit on the number of request submissions to the APIs in your account. Okay, like 10,000 requests per second or 5,000 concurrent requests per second. If the request goes over 10,000 per second or 5,000 per second concurrent, then API will return 429 HTTP error. So that's the way you can limit the calls to your API, so that no one can misuse your environment. And now let's discuss API gateway usage plane and API keys. Okay, so let's say in your application you want to maintain basic users and premium user. Okay, so like you have some study material. Okay, so you want to provide access to premium user, then other documents, okay, or the throttling for the premium user will be high configurable, okay, and the throttling for the basic user will be like less number of access per second, okay. So how you can manage it? So for that you have to create usage plan, okay. So like you can create usage plan. So let's say you have two usage plan, one is premium and another one is basic, okay. So in premium you can do like rate, that is per second you can allow 10,000 requests and you can allow concurrent 5,000 requests, okay. And for basic, you let's say you want to allow only 1,000 requests per second and concurrent it is 500, okay. And now how you can identify which user is premium and which user is basic, okay. For that you have to create API key, okay. So let's say you have created two API key, one is for premium user and another one is for basic user, okay. So when premium user will call the API gateway, they need to use the API key in the header, and when you will see this API key is in the header, so you can redirect them to the premium usage plan. And if you see this API key in the header, okay, then you can redirect them to basic usage plan, okay. So this is the way you can manage the usage plan in the API gateway for your premium user or your basic user. Or you can think of it like if you want to, suppose let's say you developed HTTP endpoint, okay, which are deployed in different server, okay. So you can redirect premium user to one server and you can redirect basic user to the another server. That is also you can do using API key. So these are all for API gateway theory. So now let's go to the hands-on of the API gateway, okay. So let's go to the monolithic design, monolithic architecture we discussed before. So let's say we have a API, okay, and we have a business logic. So we will develop an API and then we will try to deploy it in Tomcat, okay. So let's say we have developed a hello world API, okay. So I'm not going to explain you the API, how you can develop it in Java. So you can do it in any other language also. So I have created a class, okay. Inside that I have created a method which will return hello world, okay. And here I am not doing anything. So here you can have business logic and then you can have database call, and you can remove this logic from here and you can create a helper class or a service class. You can create a service class here and then you can call that method from here to do all the business logic, and you will return something to the user, okay. So it's a very basic example of an REST API, okay. So I have already deployed this in Tomcat server, okay. So this is my Tomcat, so which is also called Apache Tommy, and I have deployed my API here, okay. And let's say I am calling this API, okay. So you see here it's returning hello world, okay. So now let's do the same API in API gateway, okay. So to develop this API in API gateway, we have to do two things, okay. We have to develop API separately and then we need to write our backend logic in the Lambda, okay. So I am going to show you both the things. So if you log into your AWS account, okay, you will see this home page, okay, and here you can search API gateway. And then here you can search Lambda. So let's first create the Lambda, okay, function. We'll first create the business logic. My test order, we'll select Python. You can select anything, but I will show you in Python backend, not in Java, because you cannot edit Java in the browser, so you have to upload it. So for the moment I am going to show you in Python, and you don't need to think of this advanced setting for the moment, because this is a very basic explanation of API gateway and Lambda. So here the code, okay, I selected Python because you can edit the code here, okay. So this is a very basic Lambda function, and if you want to learn more about AWS Lambda, you can go through my YouTube channel, okay. There are many videos related to AWS Lambda in Java, okay. So you can go through my previous videos and you can watch all of them if you want to learn more about lambdas. So now I will modify this, okay, same as the returning where from our REST API developed in Java and deployed in Tomcat. So I will return here hello world, okay, and then we will deploy it. Okay, so now we have created a Lambda function, and now we will create the API, okay. So here there are many options: HTTP API, WebSocket API, RESTful API, RESTful private API if you want to make the API private. So we'll go with the REST API, okay. So let's create the API from the beginning. My order test, okay. Here regional is endpoint private, so I will select the regional endpoint. So now we have to create the resources. So first we will create the same as it, okay. So here it's hello world. And create another path. So hello world, after say hello, okay. So this is the API created. So now we will create a method, okay. So method type should be get, and then integration should be Lambda. So you see there are the integration we discussed in the video. So Lambda function, HTTP, or you can create VPC link. So we have explained these two in this video, Lambda function and HTTP. So today I'm going to show you Lambda function integration, and also I explained to you in a video that there are two types of integration. One is called proxy and one is called non-proxy. So I'm not going to select it for the moment. You can watch my previous videos if you want to learn more about the Lambda proxy integration. So I'm just selecting it as non-proxy integration, and then I will select the Lambda function from here, okay. You just need to select it and then create the method. So it's created. Now if you go to your method here, okay, you can see the integration here, okay. Authorization none. You see the Lambda function here that you selected as a backend, and now you have to deploy it. You select a stage name, new stage, test. Okay, so it's deployed. Now if you go to your get method, okay, here it will give you the path to invoke it, okay. So if you copy the path and hit it in the browser, you see it's returning the hello world, okay. So it's coming from the Lambda we developed here, okay, the hello world. So you see the difference. So in if you want to develop a REST API in monolithic design, that means if you want to use a server like Tomcat or Wildfly, for Windows it's ISS or IIS, sorry. So here you have to develop the API like this, and the backend is like it should be a service class, or you can create a helper class, and you have to deploy it in the Tomcat, okay. So you need a server here, okay, and you want to install this server in one of the operating system, that is either Linux or Windows, and you also need to manage all of the networking and blah blah, okay, 24/7 power supply, and also you need to patch the operating system for security. threads. So you have to manage whole the network and all the servers. And if you use AWS to develop your API and backend, then you don't need to do anything. Okay, so API Gateway is the fully managed services provided by AWS. You don't have to manage anything. You just need to create, publish, maintain your API. Okay, and you can easily monitor it in the AWS. Okay, like if you go to dashboard, okay, you can see the number of calls, latencies, everything, 4001, 500 error. So you can monitor it from here very easily. So that's all for today. So in my next video I am going to explain you what is a API authorizers, how can you secure your API. That I am going to show you in my next video. So thank you guys, thanks for watching. If you like the content, then please like the video and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos related to AWS. Thank you.